We're good to go? Okay, welcome. We'll go ahead, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will do, and then we'll get roll call from Haley.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Haley.
Commissioner Shelley Bodley. Excused. Commissioner Scott Justinson.
Here.
Commissioner Heidi Murdoch. Commissioner Justin Wright.
Here.
Chairman Kevin Polson.
Here.
Councilmember Mark Cottrell.
Here.
Alrighty. We'll start with public comments. We have a couple folks here visiting that I don't think we have any public issues later in the meeting. Is that correct? Okay. But so if you guys have anything you want to address that may or may not be on the agenda, you can take 3 minutes at a time and we'd be happy to hear you. I don't see anyone vying for the lectern. Everyone's good? Okay. If you have personal issues with me, you can meet me after. I know my kids have lots of issues with me, so they'll address me with more than 3 minutes. We'll go ahead. We'll review and approve Planning Commission meetings from March 25th. I went ahead and reviewed those. I didn't see any corrections that were needed. Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree. I reviewed them and didn't notice anything either. So.
Scott.
Other than, where was it? Somewhere that my name was spelled wrong. It was right everywhere but one place. I'm trying to see where that was.
They were making sure you were checking.
Yeah. Somewhere in there.
Okay, we'll find it. Okay. Probably need a vote on that one, huh?
Oh, there. Okay, there we go. It's whatever page this is. I don't see a number on it.
If you want to mark it on paper.
Okay, I'll just give it to you.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the commission meeting minutes with Scott's proposed change. Anybody want to move on that?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 25th with Scott, correcting Scott's last name as he'll submit.
I'll second that.
Alrighty, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Alrighty, those have been approved with that change. We'll go ahead and move into the commission business for the evening. We have, I think, 3 items. The first being the East Oaks preliminary plat approval.
So this lot is at 1649 East Oaks Drive. This home was purchased, and they've gone through and cleaned up the home and cleaned up that. They also went through the process of seeing it that they could split the lot and still continue to keep the same zoning. So there's no zoning change on this. There's enough square footage on both lots to split that. And so this is just coming to the council or the planning commission to move to that next step. It's one of those things. There is an amendment to the subdivision, so that goes to the planning commission for the review or any questions on that review. And then after that, it goes to the I want to say the subdivision authority, which is, and then at that point it goes to staff and we'll finalize everything. The staff has reviewed this, has gone through the process and made sure everything is where it needs to be. Right now, the plans are that they would not run in the utilities for that second lot, that somebody could buy both lots together, and then in the future, if they'd like, have the opportunity to say, we have 2 lots and sell that lot, and at that time put the utilities in. Once again, the staff didn't see any issues with going that route, or even if they decided they want to sell it without the utilities and just have it as an undeveloped lot, as long as it's approved as a building lot. there are requirements that have to go along with it, with the geotech study. It did have that. So there are requirements that they have to meet when they decide to, if they want to build on it or not, with the creek in the back and also with some of the retainage and some of the detention of the stream and all that kind of stuff, so. But they've met all those with the requirements from the geotech.
Doesn't the stream kind of run in front of that property?
It's in the back, and it's
Certain
yeah,
times-
it's in the.
Certain times of the year, though, I think they get quite a bit.
So
of
it
water.
used to have a drainage that went down to the golf course,
Okay.
through the front of that, when they did the Highway 89 project. All the crossings at that time for Highway 89 were, unable
Cool.
because of the cutting underneath there. So at that time, the county said, well, we're not using that anyway, we'll keep our water rights, but we're not gonna use that. If we decide to do something, then we'll work on figuring out a different way to get the water down to our golf course. So, it was diverted, so it goes right back into the creek if the pipe is ever put in. But, yeah, that was the county's, water that
Okay.
was able to go through those 2 yards.
Okay.
3 yards, I should say, now, if they split the lot, but.
Hey, Darren,
Yeah.
was this ever part of the originally approved East Oak subdivision as a single lot?
It was at the time, they didn't have it that way.
So we're proposing to amend it to
Be able
be
to
part
split it
of-
into,
Not a new one-lot subdivision, but an amended plat.
yeah,
for
amended the
East
plat to
Oaks.
create a second lot on there, so to add another lot to East Oaks.
And there's no utilities stubbed in at this.
At this point,
time
there's no
for that lot.
utilities stubbed in, so.
Now, are they, we've passed different, measures regarding, lawns and watering for new subdivisions or whatever. Would this be grandfathered in, or would this be and it's also
this-
sleds?
So this one is, they're able to, get irrigation, so they don't fall under that portion
Okay.
of the sensitive lands where, they're not able to get the irrigation and stuff like that, where some of the other subdivisions that are just recently been done,
Sure.
don't have that opportunity, so we have landscape restrictions and, those kind of things on there, so. But this is down in the lower part,
Okay.
irrigation's there, that's one thing that they'd have to stub in, is
Sure.
the irrigation on that too,
Okay.
so.
Another question here, Darren, on that, if we're proposing to amend the original plat to include this in there, are we seemingly sidestepping the requirement to approve a lot without improvements to it? And what would we require at a later date?
As far as if they did sell it,
Or if
For-
somebody wanted to
to
take out a
improve it
building
as an
permit
improved
on it,
lot?
To make it a usable second lot, what is it gonna take to get that a second lot?
so it'll have all the requirements that, and it is on the, plat right there, that the requirements they'd have to do to meet it, to be able to build on it, from the geotech study. So they did a geotech study, they went through, dug trenches across, looking for fault lines. They looked at different options, for the creek, Bear Creek, if it was at flood stage, what they would have to do. They would still have to meet all those requirements that's on the plat, along with stubbing in the utilities for that lot.
So in essence, they'd be kind of starting over, even though it's now a lot in East Oak subdivision, but now they're gonna have some requirements to make it.
That lot would,
fully
yeah, that
improved.
lot would have requirements that they would have to meet to make it
Okay.
make it buildable. And that was part of the geotech study, is what were the requirements if they did create a building lot. The individual that bought it, looked at a lot of different things, and they thought this was one of their better options for that property, is to be able to create a second lot there. I will tell you, I have another individual in that same subdivision, looking at a portion of their lot to do the same thing. And none of them have ever, they're still big enough lots that they don't require a flag lot, or they don't require anything. It's just they're splitting that lot to create another building lot, for that purpose. But,
Well, it has enough frontage to.
yep,
not
it has
be
enough
flat
frontage
lots,
and
so-
everything like that.
I noticed the interesting wording they put on there with the geotech report on it, that there's evidence of possible ground shaking, surface faulting, tectonic subsidence and debris flows were identified at the site. And that they are kind of saying, buyer beware, whoever is gonna be looking at this.
Yeah, I mean, they did the study, but, you know, they could say, you need to dig, you know, instead of the 10 feet, you might need to go 20 feet. But at that point where it is, I did talk with our geotech who reviewed this, and he agreed that if they put in the wording where, you know, you need to build this and you need to do this on this lot, that it could be built on.
So right now, it's not a guarantee you're gonna get a building permit on that lot or get this approved. It would be subject to future study, more in-depth study and recommendation to make it a buildable lot.
No, if they met the requirements that are on the geotech study now, it could be a buildable lot.
Let me speak to that, Scott, for just a second. Normally, when a subdivision comes before you, all of those things have been decided. And you know whether or not it's a buildable lot from a geotechnical standpoint. This is a unique set of circumstances, and Corey Brisk and I have discussed this. It's like they did half of a geotech report, and left part of it undone. The reason they did that is that if they had dug clear across the lot, which is what they needed to do, it would have impacted the neighbor's property. And, you know, there's mature landscaping and stuff in there. And so they basically said, listen, we didn't find anything when we dug a trench, but we didn't dig clear across the whole lot. We left part of it unresolved. So when they go to put in their footings and foundation, they're going to have to finish the job, and they're going to have to get the geotech guy back out there once they've fully excavated, and he's going to have to look at it again. So they do run the risk that they find something that they have not found yet, and it would render the lot unbuildable. So yes, that is a possibility, although it's probably pretty remote at this point. And even our geotechnical engineer, Tim Thompson, stated that it's unlikely that they're going to find anything else. They probably would have already found it, but that is a possibility. And so I've never really run across this situation before where this has been done like this. So we're essentially going to have to issue a building permit to excavate the site and then come in and look at it again before we issue a permit to build a home on it.
And that addresses my concerns, is to make sure it's buildable, because I don't know if anybody's looked into this, whether that backyard along with the house next door is in the floodplain for Bear Canyon, because that'll also render it uninsurable. And the berm is important, I think, because of the potential flood down that creek.
Yeah, there is mitigation required for the creek through that whole area, but
Okay.
there is that on there. I think the other thing, as I was talking to Tim about this too, it once again, it's kind of like the rock loft. He kind of pointed out, you know, they put in their building permit, they come and dig it, and if they find issues, they have to have that signed off by a geotech. It would be the same thing on this, as they
Okay.
came through and dug it out, and then, there's issues here, we got to mitigate these issues. He said we would have to do the same kind of procedure on this lot if that's the direction.
And then just one other thing that you had brought up, Kevin, isn't all of Fruit Heights City under the new landscape ordinance as far as,
I don't
we
believe
adopted that?
I don't believe all the city is. When they wrote the ordinance, and I was actually looking up the ordinance, trying to find the ordinance and go through the whole thing today, just for another question that came up.
I've got it if you need it.
Well, maybe you ought to give it to me, so I don't have to keep looking. But most of that was talking about sensitive land areas or areas that doesn't have irrigation provided. Now, yeah, do we need to start conserving and we need to start landscaping accordingly? Yeah, I think we really do. I think we need to do that everywhere, but it doesn't fall into that as of yet. But it could fall into a sensitive land just from the situation it is and where it's at. It could fall into that because of different slopes and required retainage and stuff like that. So that is a possibility. So, and that's one thing as a staff, as we have to go through this next stage, that will be things we're gonna be looking at, those portions of that part of that, so.
Is there anything, just with East Oaks being so steep and with it being right there on the curve, having used to live up there? I know there was a lot of concern with that, just without adding additional
It's where
homes.
they'd need to put their driveway for access is probably the biggest thing. So as people come around there.
And I would guess that,
The good thing about that one, everybody wants to hug that really tight to the south side, so they're always in the other lane. So that, I mean, that's one good thing, but no, yeah, there are things you still have to look at, but I think those things can be resolved as we finish up the process.
Alrighty. Anything else on that?
Not on this one, no. I did want to give you a heads up, we have another request that came in for another lot split.
Okay.
In another subdivision, and so we'll have that at the next meeting. We should have everything sent out and everything like that for that one too, and all the information for that one too. But once again, it's big enough, it's over an acre, they're splitting it in half, so it still meets all the zoning.
Fits all the
and everything.
zoning, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so there wouldn't be any zone change with that.
Got it.
And then, just the one more thing I wanted to mention, we have, Jeff and I have received 2 requests for zoning changes. So, Haley's in the process on that of sending out the letters to the people around that it affects and stuff like that. And so that will probably be at our next meeting too. So if we can get everything back from the neighbors and all that, so.
Speaking of zone change requests, have we heard anything back from Hidden Springs, the HOA?
Last I heard, they were still talking about it. They were debating on selling or just paying someone to come in or leasing. But they were it was still in discussion. It was gonna go to the board another time.
Okay.
But the one board member said, yeah, we think we got the support, and then it's kind of been a little quiet after that point, so I don't know where that one is, but as soon as that one starts moving forward and gets a little traction, I'll make sure we're moving forward with that one too at that time, so.
Okay.
can I just ask, zone change request, you mentioned notifying neighbors that it affects. What is the requirement, or how, is it a certain distance?
500 feet,
Okay.
yeah, 500 feet, so everybody that's in that area, within 500 feet of those properties, we'll send a letter to, and then we'll have those back hopefully in the next few weeks and move forward, so. Okay.
Thank you. All right, so I think that we now have reviewing MIH strategies. I think this came out of the working meeting from May. Is that, who will be presenting on that? Come on down. Sorry. It's all yours.
So the city council has tasked the planning commission with looking at all of the strategies that the state has published for moderate income housing. And going through those strategies and making a recommendation to the city council as to whether we keep the strategies that we currently have, that we've adopted as a city, which is essentially 3. or whether there is possibilities of looking at other strategies that could be considered. There are some new strategies that weren't available to us when we did this the first time. But essentially, looking at all of these strategies, and we've got a little bit of time to work on this, and basically going through them one by one and identifying, is this something that Fruit Heights City could consider? Is it just out of the realm of possibilities for our city to meet a particular strategy? And basically get to a recommendation of whatever number of strategies you feel comfortable with, sending to the city council a recommendation on what the future of the moderate income housing plan should look like. Now, I want to remind the Planning Commission that at the present time, the city is in full compliance with the state mandates for moderate income housing. And so there's nothing wrong with the plan as it's currently adopted and has been presented to the state. If we want to continue with those strategies, that can be part of the discussion. I think that this is a good time to look at everything again and see if there could be other things or new strategies that could be considered. We're only required to have 3. We're only required to have 3. When we presented this in the general plan at the last go-around, we had identified 5, and we're only able to secure 3 of those according to the state approval process. So we've never done this. Well, it's been a number of years since we looked at this holistically. So I don't know what process that you all feel comfortable with in following, but probably just go through these things one by one and take a look at them and say, yes, this is a possibility. No, this is absolutely, we're never going to be able to meet that. And try and narrow it down to hopefully a half a dozen or so strategies that could be considered, and the reasons why they could be considered. I think it'll be pretty clear that there are a number of these that are just like out right off the bat. There's just, we're not a major transit hub, so we're never going to be that. So this is our first go at this. I'm open to suggestions on how you all believe that we should proceed forward.
Sure. I took a look at all of them. Remind me, the ones we focused on are new zoning, right? We created the R16. We've talked about in the past year or two different places where that might fit, even potentially R3 where that could fit. I know that's probably our strongest argument to the state of compliance, right?
I'd have to go back and look at it for sure, but I think it's A, E, and F that we've currently chosen, A, E, and F.
Yeah, that's correct.
And I want to remind the Planning Commission that, in my mind, there is still one unresolved piece of information that we've committed in our current moderate income housing plan that we have not fulfilled. And that is identifying areas in the city where higher density development could be considered. And you remember we've had a number of discussions about that and identified some places, but never finalized in any kind of recommendation on that. So I feel like that's still a work in progress, but it's something that we should fulfill.
Sure.
Unless we're just going to change direction completely and go down some other road.
I think, if I recall correctly, we kind of said, hey, everyone, each of us as planning commissioners, focus on your own zone. Because I remember flagging a couple different spaces around me saying, hey, this is really logical, like right next to the condos, next to Cherry Heights, even up around. I remember us flagging some different areas, and I felt like everyone, Scott, this is probably before you got on, but I know we had a lot of those discussions and flagged some of those areas. So did we ever turn that, is that something that we had just kind of conceptually talked about, or did we turn anything into you guys for consideration?
I don't know that it ever got past that conceptual stage.
Okay.
With discussion. I know we have a map where we tried to put everything onto one map, and I know
Yeah.
we talked about that in a meeting
And
or
we
two.
kind of colored it in red or
Yes.
something. It might be nice to resurface that and start talking about that again, because I think that's, I mean, we're kind of in infill stage at this point as a city, so I think that's going to be the crux of movement that we can show the state is, hey, these are areas that could make sense.
What does final format of that look like, though, in order to finish that requirement? Is it just a map?
That's a good question. What we need to do is, they require a yearly update.
In August, or when is it?
It's July, it's July 1st, which is tomorrow, right? And you're supposed to report on what you've done the past year.
Embed the video of tonight in our submission. It's like, we're being good.
But the state has given everybody a reprieve for a year. We have to submit a report tomorrow identifying how many certificates of occupancy we've issued over the last 12 months. And that's the only reporting thing that we have to do. So what we do now, what we do after July 1 is, and what we will report on next July 1st is what we do between right now and next July 1st. That's the reporting period, is the past year. So we will report on what we did from July 1, 2026 to July 1, 27.
Right.
Everything that we work on from here on out is in that reporting period. And so back to your question, what does that look like? I don't know. I don't know exactly. We can go back and we can read what we committed to do, but my recollection of that is that we would identify areas in the city and put them in the general plan. Areas that could be considered for higher density development. We did not say that we were gonna rezone those properties,
Sure.
that we were gonna actually create or fulfill something, but that we would identify and amend the general plan to include that as part of the general plan. That was our commitment, and we should fulfill that commitment unless we're just gonna abandon that strategy in favor of something else.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's, as far as the strategies the state's looking for, that's the one that we can most strongly accomplish. Because there's not. I mean, we don't have a ton of room with anything else.
And furthermore, it is pretty simple.
Yeah.
Not creating the development, but
Sure.
fulfilling the promise.
Yeah, there's no legal commitment we're making.
No.
And we're not making any change to the city.
No. And so I think it's important that we don't give the state the power to come back and say, well, you guys said you were gonna do these things and you've had 2 years to do it and you haven't done anything. So it would be nice to be able to fulfill that and say, yes, we did do it. And they specifically, this is kind of going back and reminding people of things that have happened. They specifically asked Darren and I for the minutes from the meetings that we had discussed these things, because they wanted to verify whether or not we were actually trying to fulfill that commitment.
Sure.
And so, I think we have a responsibility to fulfill it.
Yeah. I'm curious because it seems like, so the state put this in place 22, 23? What year was it?
Yeah, 22 probably.
And then 23 is when we started to, like, that's when we got the general plan in place. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. Have we gotten a sense of, have they started throwing the book at anyone acting in bad faith? Like, I've got to imagine there's been a lot of reprieve over the past couple of years. It seems like every year they're like, okay, everyone's kind of getting their feet into this. Have we seen any like punishments doled out
Not
that
to
we
my
can kind of
knowledge.
assess what's a precedent? Because that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing is at this point is trying to assess. Again, you're running from the bear next to your best friend. Are you beating the bear? No, but if you can beat your best friend, like
Yeah.
we're in decent
To
shape.
my knowledge, there's been no punishment to any cities for not complying. I think the vast majority of cities have complied.
Sure.
What kind of progress they're making, I don't know. I think that another discussion point that is very valid is that this originally sat with the Department of Workforce Services. That has now been moved to the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And so it's going from one state agency to another. And all of the rumor mill is that things are going to change. The rules are going to change. Now, what's interesting, does that mean it's going to be less restrictive or more restrictive? I mean, you know, we've all heard what the governor's, doing with the saber rattling. That remains to be seen, but people that are close to this issue believe that things are going to be less restrictive than it has been. That is all something that will be discussed in the legislature this upcoming session. And we fully expect that there's going to be significant changes. We just don't know which direction this thing's gonna go.
Were there any failed bills that were showing it going one direction or the other from this past session, from February?
Specific to affordable housing, there was a lot of talk about it. The main thing that keeps coming up, the main thing that they did that the state believes is moving affordable housing forward is they approved that external ADUs are an approved use everywhere in the state.
And that's something we have to grapple
Yes.
with by October?
We're going to have to amend our ordinance to include that. So they made that move. They also have now for the last 3 years in a row been throwing out this idea that the state would approve 4,000 square foot lots would be can be approved anywhere in the state as an approved lot size, an approved use. That has been met with stiff resistance from nearly every single municipality in the state, because if they do that, they've effectively killed zoning in the state of Utah. There will be no more zoning. That's 3 years in a row they've threatened it. In fact, they've run bills for it 3 years in a row. It just has not got the traction that is necessary to pass it. Will they eventually do it? I don't know. There's people on both sides of that some say yes, some say no. But that's been, kind of the governor's whipping stick, so to speak, saying, you guys get it together or we'll come in and tell you what you are and aren't gonna do. I don't know how many of you, have heard the rumors about the, Beehive Development Company, which it would be a state-sponsored, basically real estate development arm of the state of Utah called Beehive Development, where they would have carte blanche authority to go into any municipality, anytime, anywhere, any place, and build whatever they want to build. And there would be no discussion with any municipality about what that looks like or what it is. That has been also a threat that a lot of people that are in land use planning law believe that at some level that's going to happen, and that the state will selectively go into areas and say, we're gonna do this right here, right now. They have that authority right now. The state of Utah does not need Fruit Heights City's permission to build a state building right here in this vacant space, if they wanted to. They've not really done that to a large extent, but they have done it in some situations. UDOT is famous for that. They'll build structures and things and wherever they need and want. I don't know that anybody knows where the future lies with this, but the governor believes that municipalities are not meeting affordable housing mandates as fast as they need to be met. Cities like Fruit Heights have a very good argument, in my opinion, in that here we sit nearly at build out. What do you want us to do? We don't have thousands of acres. I think it's unlikely that those kind of mandates get put on small cities that are nearly at build out. I mean, do we tear down a neighborhood to redo something? It's mostly what you said. It's infill. It's filling in a few open spaces.
Sure.
We're not going to move the needle. We're not going to recreate the wheel. We're going to do a few things, and they're going to be small in scale.
Jeff, I think it was reported before that the state basically, if we choose a strategy, if we complete something 1 year, we kind of lose credit for it, right? Every year they want to see 3 things. Is that correct?
Not 3 new things,
Okay.
but what they want to see every year is progress. What have you done over the last year to implement or further the strategy that you chose? Have you taken steps and measures to implement what this strategy says? That seems to be more of the theme, because I mean, we probably approved the only 3 things that we could have remotely done in the last one. Let's say we completed all 3 of them. There's not even 2 other ones that we could have chosen.
So at that time, it was what, internal ADU, the new zoning, what was the third?
The ADU ordinance, the new zoning designation, and then this promise to identify areas of the city for higher
Got it.
density development.
Got it, okay.
Those were essentially the 3 things.
So state's giving a reprieve for 1 year.
Yeah,
Is that, so, and our current plan is compliant.
yes.
So if we did nothing for a year, we'd be okay.
We could do nothing for a year.
Well, we'll
and-
be
and
forced to do
and-
the external ADU
and-
though.
Yeah.
So that adds a
we-
4th.
We do have to implement an external ADU ordinance.
But they're not gonna give us credit for that, right? Because it's being mandated by the state.
Yeah, that doesn't count as one of the things. That's not, that's not one of the strategies, that's just a state law now.
Yeah.
So we
But
wouldn't
if
be
we-
given, we wouldn't be given credit for that, but, we do need to implement that. I don't know for sure what the deadline for having that implemented is. Do you know, Darren?
That was the fall at some point.
This fall.
But if we,
One
I
of those
mean,
items we need to work on.
so if theoretically, if we identified the areas within the city where we would consider higher density and we documented that somehow, would that be acceptable to the state? Would that be enough progress, do you believe?
Well-
Or do we need to do more than that?
It fulfills our commitment on that strategy. So in my mind, yes, it does. It does show progress, and it feels like that would be a very attainable metric to meet. It's not very difficult. It's difficult from the standpoint that, is that gonna be acceptable to, neighbors and neighborhoods, whatever? But, I mean, again, we're not talking about hundreds of acres, we're talking about a couple of acres here and there.
Well, and there's no rezone, right? There's nothing that's committing to it.
No, we don't have to rezone the property. When we had that work meeting a while back, I made the comment that, and I still believe that this is very valid now, is that this city could use a couple of wins, right? We could use a couple of things, a couple of projects that we could point to and say, this is what we've done.
Sure.
And I think that trying to set out a goal like that, if we could put in a couple of higher density projects, and I use this word higher density, knowing that we're never going to meet the state's definition of affordable housing, but we could certainly do something more than creating a $2 million single-family dwelling, right?
Which was the idea of R16, is it's a bridge between
Yeah.
R3 and the
I think,
R110s.
Darren, you said there's been 2 requests for rezone. Are any of them for R16 or anything that's higher density?
The
Both
two-
of those are R3 is what
Yeah,
they're
the
gonna come
two
and ask
that
for.
are gonna come before you are both R3, and they're both adjacent to the existing trailer park. So.
Oh, is it
they're
the lapidary?
immediately adjacent.
Is it the old rock shop?
That's
Oh,
one of
that's
them.
great. That'll be perfect. It's a
Yeah.
great spot for
So
that.
we're looking at, they're looking like at a townhome product.
Yeah, send them on in. That's a great idea.
We'll see that probably in the next couple of months.
I would think we'd see that one within the next couple of weeks. I've talked to them multiple times over the last week and a half.
I mean, is that progress? Is that progress to report to the state, right? Is that a win?
I think
I
so.
think so for sure.
Absolutely.
I agree, but
In my mind, absolutely. You remember we rezoned the
The Joe
acre
Christensen.
of property up here on 650,
yeah.
and it ultimately failed. It ultimately failed, maybe for a myriad of reasons, but the reason that was stated was that it didn't pencil. They couldn't make 6 units work on a piece of property. That was just one example. It's the only example we've even had to even look at. So having a couple of projects that we could, get in the approval process, I think would definitely go a long ways to say to the state, well, we've taken some action.
Right.
The question came up at that work meeting, why can't we just use the affordable housing we've already built? The state doesn't allow it. They want to see what, they said this is new development, not.
What have you done for me
not-
lately
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of thing?
what have you done lately type of
Sure.
thing.
Sure. Well, so you said both of those are R3s. I think, yeah, that shows we're entertaining the ideas, right? Yeah, I was just walking past that rock shop the other day and like, what are they gonna do with that?
Now, I don't know ultimately if the city council is going to approve those projects, but we're certainly going to run them up the flagpole and see where that goes.
Sure.
They appear to be in an area that is already impacted by higher density development.
For sure.
What's the right across the street? What zone is that?
So
Just to
it's
the north.
R18, there's Cherry Heights, and then R110 or R112 is my area, the Creek View, and then it's commercial right next to it.
Yeah.
In fact, that is commercial too, right?
Yes, it's zone commercial now.
Yeah, so I think it's a really logical location
Yeah.
for
agreed.
that sort of thing.
Agreed.
Okay. I mean, are there ones specifically that you had in mind that you wanted us to review closely? I mean, we've talked a lot about, even when we were doing the internal ADU, we had discussions about the external ADU. I think the Withams came by, gosh, probably 3-4 years ago and talked about a proposal for an external ADU. But you're saying that won't count towards our effort even?
Well, I think that strategy E, which is create or allow for and reduce regulations related to internal or detached accessory dwelling units, we can still report that we've created an external ADU ordinance, which is basically just checking a box. But that's gonna look better than saying we did nothing, we didn't do it.
Well, and I would assume like having licenses that have been given out, that's going to show progress, right? That's going to turn the needle a little bit. I mean, I think once we have one, the Withams are going to come in, get theirs all checked out.
In my mind, if you created an external ADU ordinance, which we're already mandated to do.
Sure.
If we identified and created this higher density zoning map and put that in the general plan, and we approved 1 or 2 higher density projects somewhere in the city, I would think that looks pretty solid for a year's worth of work in this city.
Sure. Okay. No, that's helpful. And what action items do you need from us in the time being?
Well, what I think we need to do is we need to go through these things one by one and try and identify whether there are other strategies that this city could consider adopting in the future.
So we want to run through these real quick tonight. Is that?
I think if we could just kind of maybe read through these, I'm fine to just kind of narrate this, but maybe what we do tonight is just kind of read through them and say, yeah, this is definitely out. There's no way we'll ever do this, and then maybe have another category for this could be a possibility that needs further consideration. So strategy A, which is rezone for density, can you blow that up just a little bit? My eyes are getting bad. Yeah, right there. We can go down a little bit smaller. Right there's good. So rezone for densities necessary to facilitate the production of moderate income housing. This is where we created the R16 zone. If we approved a project or two with this, using this zoning district or another one, like the R3, I think you could say
We're moving forward.
you're moving forward with that. So I think that that's definitely one that you keep on the drawing board. If on the other hand, it's decided that we're not gonna rezone anything for higher density, maybe that one doesn't have as much applicability, because we've already kind of done that piece. And just so you know, the state is under the guise that we rezoned a piece of property and we're going to develop that into a higher density project. That all failed after this was approved by the state. So when we report on that next time, they're gonna say, how'd that turn out? Well, it didn't.
But,
So
but that's not city.
that's gonna be viewed as a failure.
But the city had nothing to do.
It had nothing to do with the city, has nothing to do with the city whatsoever.
Yeah.
It failed on its own merits.
Yeah. I think that R16, I think there's support. I think we agree that it's a good thing. I think it's gonna be hard to pencil for somebody to come in with the cost of land.
It becomes easier to pencil the bigger the project is.
Sure.
Yeah.
To come in and put 6 units on 1 acre of property and make that pencil, that's pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Sure.
But that's really what we're facing.
Yeah.
So I think that you definitely keep that one in the mix. Strategy E, which is create or allow for and reduce regulations related to internal or detached accessory dwelling units. If we pass the new ordinance, I think you can say, okay, we've made progress on this, this is what we're doing. We did make one other commitment that we have not fulfilled, and I need to mention that. We said that we would make an effort to go out and try and figure out where, we know that there's a bunch of illegal ADUs that exist now, that have not been properly licensed and they have not come into the city. We said that we would make an effort to try and assess where that's at citywide. We have not done that. We haven't embarked on that, in that effort. And so as part of strategy E, we should try and do some kind of citywide outreach to say, come in and get your ADUs licensed. If you have one, come in and get it licensed.
What's the cost of a license?
About $250
Per year, or like just a one-time?
Setup is $150.
Yeah.
That includes, you gotta go do an inspection, making sure all the requirements are there for it.
Would that result in a certificate of occupancy as well? Like that we could report, hey, we have a new COO?
I don't
know if
think
that
so.
Is the structure?
That's not considered well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. That's a question, Kevin, that's worth asking.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a new unit, right? It's
Well,
not a new-
the external ones
dwelling
kind of
unit.
are.
the external ones.
The internal
kind
ones
of
are a little different, but
Darren and I have talked about this and surmised that one of the reasons that people are hesitant to come in and get their things approved is because they can't.
is it compliant
They
with?
won't be compliant with the building code, and they have to be.
Do we think there's
If
more?
you've just gone in and remodeled your garage and you haven't met electrical and plumbing and ingress and egress and those kind of things, and you know that, you're gonna be reluctant to say
Sure.
anything because the city's gonna come out and say, well, here's 25 things you gotta do.
Sure.
And you gotta tear the whole thing apart and start over.
Do we think that's the majority of the internal ADUs in town though? Or is it
We
somebody
don't know.
renting their basement out?
We honestly don't know what the reasons are. We're just surmising what they could be.
I mean, I think the easy starting point would be the externals, because you can drive around, see those, for the most part, and then approach those. But I'm wondering what the best way is to get people to come talk about internals. Because I think you're right. The concern is we already had that statute in place or the code section in place, and so to the extent people know about that or have read the code, maybe they already know that they're out of compliance.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's gotta be fire escape, egress out of a basement. You know, you gotta have the proper size windows and all of those things. There could be a myriad of reasons. We just don't know because we haven't gone down that road. We just, what are we up to, Darren? 6 approved ones?
5.
5 or 6?
I think
Approved one.
I read somewhere on here
It
5.
said 5.
Yeah.
And then I think 2 of those were an actual remodel, where they come in and got the building permit and went through the whole process. The other ones were already completed. And so it is a little bit of a challenge sometimes when you go in and inspect and they don't have all the stuff that they're required, smoke detectors, all that, but they've been using it. And so but if they're gonna do it and they do it right, yeah, I think it's a fairly easy process to go through and meet the requirements. I honestly, after looking and talking to insurance companies, I'd much rather have it checked off saying, yeah, I met these requirements to be
Sure.
there for any kind of hazard than taking that chance with your own homeowners and not having it done. So, but yeah, I think we're at 5 or 6 right now. And like I said, 2 of them for sure were remodels that they actually went in and built them to be what they are.
I wonder if after we pass the external ADU, we can do some sort of like an open house and you have like a insurance agent type there explaining the importance of being code compliant for coverage. You could have a contractor that specializes or a couple that come in and say, hey, it's actually not too hard to get some of these things done. And just educate people about, you know, what the process is here at the city. Here's the form, here's what it looks like. Maybe that could help people kind of just understand the lay of the land a little bit better. I mean, I'd just be curious to come in and just hear from a contractor, or like, what does it take? You know, what are we talking about? Because I'm sure there's people. I think there's a lot of people who are specializing in ADUs right now because so many cities up and down the Wasatch have a lot of attention on the issue.
People don't understand the risk that they're running if you remodel your home and you don't get the proper permitting, you don't meet the proper building codes and get the proper inspections, and your house burns down due to a faulty plug, your insurance company isn't gonna pay. So you're risking your entire structure. It's not worth it.
Sure.
Anyway, strategy would be fairly easy to say we've progressed on that strategy by adopting that external ADU code.
Well, then we have to.
So I think that's definitely one that you say, let's just keep that one on there. F is zone or rezone for higher density or moderate income residential development. That one is one that we could say, if we adopt that map, then we've met that.
Yep.
So I think that's definitely one that you keep in the mix of things to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, and, you know, the 2 proposed R3s, you know, that would feed into this as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Strategy J is implement zoning incentives for moderate income units in new developments. That was one of the things that we chose the first go around. This is a very difficult thing for a small city, is that, like, what kind of incentive are we gonna give?
What does that look like in practice that you've seen other cities do?
What does this look like in practice? I mean, honestly, you're, to meet the moderate income housing number, this is a unit that's $400,000 or less. You can't buy a lot for $400,000 in the city, so you're gonna have to incentivize somebody, let's say that the unit's an $800,000 unit. We're gonna incentivize somebody $400,000 per unit? No, we're not. So when somebody says that we're gonna, waive their water impact fee, that just does nothing.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you don't create I just don't think that that one's just even realistic for, given the size of the city and the value of the property in the city.
I mean, I would imagine this works if you're like a vineyard or you have tons of acreage and it's kind of a huge sum all at once. It's not one-offs like we're talking about here. It has to be, for this to make sense, it has to be a large swath of property, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Strategy L, reduce, waive, or eliminate impact fees related to moderate income housing. That's really kind of the same idea. I mean, how much impact is that gonna make if we, waive impact fees? We waive the park impact fee, the water impact fee, or something or another related to that. One, the city can't afford to. They need that money to operate, utilities and operate the city. So you're gonna have to make that up somewhere else if you give that away. And how much impact are you really gonna be able to have waiving a few $1,000s in impact fees?
Yeah.
How much is that really, what kind of difference is that gonna make? And is that gonna make or break somebody's ability to live in an affordable home? Probably not. B is demonstrate investment in the rehabilitation or expansion of infrastructure that facilitates the construction of moderate income housing. I don't know where you would go with this. Most of our infrastructure is already in place citywide. So I don't know what new infrastructure we would put in that you would be able to show that direct connection.
Well, there's rehabilitation. I mean, is that as broad as saying the city's working on our streets? Like, does that turn anything? Does that affect anything? Because it is fairly vague. Rehabilitation of infrastructure that facilitates the construction of moderate income housing.
We know that there is currently a huge problem getting sewage underneath I-15 and over to the Central Davis Sewer District. There's a huge bottleneck. And that affects all of Kaysville and all of Fruit Heights. And so that's something that needs to be tackled at some point in the future, but you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars to take on something like that. And two different cities, and at the end of the day, is that for moderate income housing infrastructure? It's for everybody. So, we're not even, we don't even control any of that. That's all sewer district stuff. I don't know. I don't know how creative we want to try and get.
In my opinion, you put it on there, and if they think it's nonsense,
If
they'll
we-
tell us.
If we rebuild a road like you suggested, we rehabilitate a road, how do you show that the people that drive on that road and that benefit from the improvement of that road, how did that benefit moderate income housing?
I think the selling pitch is, hey, by improving any infrastructure, we are courting developers. We're saying, hey, this is a place to develop. We're taking care of our city. We're improving these aging structures, infrastructure. Where where we're at such a disadvantage compared to a lot of municipalities. I think it's worth just identifying what are we doing, and they say, hey, that was cute, you included that on your plan, but that's not really part of it, and then we exclude it next year.
Is that a strategy that we should just kind of keep in the wings and say?
I think we should just note it every year. This is what we did this year. We improved. I mean, you guys were up near my neighborhood, patching roads, and it's great. Is that going to immediately lead to some sort of moderate income housing? No, but at the same time, you know, you're talking about the old rock shop. That's affected by those roads that you guys are patching. You know, you've got to argue to a developer, okay, that makes it more attractive to develop this, to put in position
Yeah, I
a
see
new
that.
development. It's a little bit attenuated, but I think a lot of these are pretty attenuated.
Let's mark that one down, Darren, as one that we can take a closer look at. Strategy C, demonstrate investment in the rehabilitation of existing uninhabitable housing stock into moderate income housing. I don't think we have a lot of uninhabited homes now in the city. There's been one or two,
Well, the rock shop, that's one of them.
yes.
So, hey, we check off another strategy here in the next year
But are they
potentially.
gonna accept something that we did 5 years ago?
No, not the Rock Loft.
Sorry, the rock shop, the
Oh, I thought
lapidary.
I thought you were talking about the Rock Loft.
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about that rezone proposal because that is. I mean, it's been uninhabited for 8 months.
You know what, that is a good point, Kevin. That is an uninhabitable structure now and
Yeah.
has been vacant for a number of years. So I think you could use strategy C if that was done. You might be able to kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
Do we have to demonstrate investment by the city or just investment, like city funds or just an investment?
I don't know. I don't know what that means detail-wise. But I think it's worth looking at
It's worth trying.
that as a strategy.
Yeah.
Because it was an uninhabited structure. I mean, it's been vacant for 5 years.
On and off. There's been people
6
there
months?
for short periods. But most recently, yeah, it's been empty for at least 6 to 8 months. No.
Okay, so that's definitely one that we need to look at.
I think that East Oaks property that we talked about, that house was uninhabitable. So that's a huge improvement.
The East Oaks,
The plat, yeah. So,
Look at
Oh,
us.
yeah,
So
your
many
home.
strategies.
How long's your home been vacant?
is that yours now? Okay.
I don't think you're planning on selling that as a moderate income housing unit, are you?
Yes.
There's always
I-
room for an internal ADU.
Kevin, I think that's a good point on that rock shop.
Yeah, I think again in my eyes, where this is a 3-year-old thing, let's start aggressively. Let's put things on there, and let's force the state to be like, hey, you're being a little cute, like, and then we
Yeah.
pull it off the next year.
Yeah, we can throw it out there. They can always say no.
Yeah. Just because I think we're all like every city's kind of looking at each other, being like, "What are you doing?" You know, it's so brand new that I don't think. I think the state is looking for bad actors who are refusing to do anything, and we're not. We are far from that. We're doing as much as we have capacity to do. So I think if we point out the good we're doing, I honestly think, unless you got someone who's hyper aggressive in the economic development crew, that they're going to see good faith efforts. We're never going to look the same as, you know, Draper or Vineyard, but yeah, we're for a small city with not much to do. These are pretty good steps.
Okay, so strategy D is identify and utilize general fund subsidies or other sources of revenue to waive construction-related fees that are otherwise generally imposed by the municipality for the construction or rehabilitation of moderate income housing. This is just another form of kind of reducing, waiving impact fees. I don't know how far the council's willing to go
Sure.
down that road.
Are there any grants that we can apply for that we could use to apply towards stuff like this where, I know that in the past we've gotten grants for other things. Is there anything available that we can get creative and, I don't know.
Grants would be one-time monies. So you could maybe do something once.
Sure.
And given just the breadth of, we're not needing to help people with thousands of dollars, it's hundreds of thousands
Sure.
of dollars.
Sure.
That's the hard part. Strategy G is amend land use regulations to allow for higher density or new moderate income residential development in commercial or mixed-use zones near major transit investment corridors. So that's really pretty similar to F, which we already have. It's very similar to F. I don't even know why they say it twice. We're kind of already,
Jeff, that one's because it needs to be by a major transit
corridors.
zone or corridor, as part of that strategy.
and we don't have that. I'm probably never gonna have, we're not gonna have fixed rail or a fixed guideway system ever in this city. We're gonna have bus service at best. So I don't know if we'll ever be considered a major transit investment corridor. In fact, that term is used very specifically in the moderate income housing law.
It's probably the
They have to
same
meet
term.
additional requirements
Sure.
if you have that. They have to have 5 strategies if they have one of those in their community. H, amend land use regulations to eliminate or reduce parking requirements for residential development where a resident is less likely to rely on the resident's own vehicle, such as residential development near major transit investment corridors or senior living facilities. Again, we have neither one of those situations. If you we could reduce parking requirements, all right? I mean, we require like 2 off-street parking stalls for every unit in higher density. We could get that down to 1, but the idea behind that whole thing is that you're not using your vehicle, you're walking somewhere.
That's a walkable community.
It's a
That's what they're
walkable
talking
community.
about.
I don't
That's
know where you're walking
That's a
in Fruit Heights to
15-minute
go
city or
anywhere.
whatever, and
Yeah.
that's not gonna happen here.
No.
It's impossible.
So that just seems like just completely unrealistic.
Sure.
To
I
meet
mean,
that.
that's going to be married with these major transit investment. That's the only way you can do that is if you pair the two.
Strategy I is amend land use regulations to allow for single-room occupancy developments. So this would be dorm type of housing with shared bathrooms and kitchens, bedrooms that are separately rented and locked. You see this in some college, close to colleges, areas. I mean, it's the old boarding house idea where you rent rooms. It's currently something that's not allowed in the city. It doesn't mean that we couldn't consider it in the future, but there would have to be some other amendments to some of our codes to do that.
Does senior living count towards that, like something like that, or is that just a completely different idea?
What do you mean by senior living?
I mean, yeah, I'm just thinking like a lot of these facilitated.
Like Whisper Cove. They
Right.
Just have individual bedrooms for,
And then
they
they
have a
eat
shared
at a
cafeteria.
cafeteria.
Yeah, Yeah, I think that would apply to that.
Do we have,
We don't,
that's in Kaysville, I'm thinking of, Whisper
Yeah.
Cove's in Kaysville,
Yeah,
right?
we don't have anything
Okay.
in Fruit Heights, but I think there'd be a demand for it in Fruit Heights.
At some point,
there's a big one in Layton.
right?
Yeah.
That idea is more palatable, I think, than like a true dorm type living in our
And typically
city.
those have much fewer parking spaces because
Yeah.
they don't need
Sure.
to drive.
It's just visitors.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that, we'd have to build something like that from, if we were gonna do some kind of senior living thing, I mean, we'd have to build that from scratch. And you'd need a pretty big piece of property to do it.
Yeah, you only have a few in the city that would be big enough for
Yeah,
something like that.
I can only think
And
of
they'd
one.
be relatively small like Whisper Cove is. It was right there on Main Street in
Yeah.
Kaysville. But there's a few places.
I mean, there's a 55 and older building over there in Farmington, right next to Chick-fil-A, but that's like full-blown,
Apartment.
you know, full-price rent. It's
Sure.
not subsidized in any way, shape, or
Right.
form.
No. Yeah.
But you do have people renting out just a room in their house,
Yeah.
that they share bathroom, maybe share a kitchen, but they rent out a room. That, where does that fall under, the internal ADU, or where's that gonna fall under?
Well, currently, like I said, currently, that would not be allowed.
Would be illegal in Fruit Heights.
Because the internal ADU needs to have certain characteristics to it. It needs to have, each ADU has to have its own, you know, kitchen, bathroom, living area, bedroom. And so we don't currently have provisions for renting out rooms.
Actually,
Not-
Jeff, we do. Our ordinance, there's an ordinance that allows that you can rent a room to a friend or.
Where's
a
that
family
at?
member. I can't remember, Brad and I went through it and we found it.
I'm not.
Because
Is it-
because
but
I've
that's-
had individuals.
That's on a temporary basis, though,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a
kind of
permanent,
like
it's a
an
temporary
internship
thing that
idea.
they can rent their room to a friend, to help pay for their rent and stuff like that.
I gotta look at that.
Yeah.
But is
so-
that something that we may wanna look at, cause that's a possibility, people that have these big homes and don't have anybody there anymore, if they wanna rent a room and a bath. Is that something that would help solve our affordable housing?
Maybe.
I think
Um,
the concern there probably is parking. 'cause
Yeah,
you're
parking's
bringing,
always
you know,
the issue
if if you're a boarding house type, you're gonna have
You gotta have a lot of
5
parking.
cars or something, you know?
And I'm not talking a boarding house situation. If people are gone, the house obviously was originally built to accommodate X amount of people, and those people don't live there anymore. If there was some kind of ordinance that regulated how many, you could have one boarder or something like that, would that be a possibility, something to look at?
I guess in our internal ADU, we had some sort of parking piece to that ordinance, didn't we?
We do.
So we could kind of
We
replicate
require
that.
one additional off-street parking stall for an internal ADU.
So remember, we addressed that, our concern, we were thinking a lot about R18s and now R16s of, if you have someone trying to do it there, it becomes pretty hairy pretty quick.
Okay, let's move on. K is preserve existing and new moderate income housing and subsidized units by utilizing a landlord incentive program, providing for deed restricted units through a grant program or notwithstanding section 1021-301, establishing a housing loss mitigation fund. So the idea behind this is you create a deed restriction means that you have limited what that home can either rent for or sell for. And for some certain period of time, and thus making it more affordable. You've got to be very careful about going down that road.
Create a time bomb.
I mean,
It's a liability.
you don't, if you're going to do deed restriction, it needs to be a long enough time frame that that somebody doesn't, it can't be like deed restricted for 1 year. Somebody comes in and buys a home for $500,000 and a year later sells it for $1 million. If you're gonna do deed restriction, it needs to be on a longer horizon, 5, 10, 20 years. If you're really going to make a difference so that people have an incentive to stay there, or if they do sell it, they're selling it to somebody else that can afford it.
Sure.
So this kind of thing is out there. We've never done it as a city. We have nothing in place to do this as a city now. But if you want to go down this road, we could certainly look at it. You got to find like a willing partner, though. You got to find a developer that's willing to do that.
It creates so many issues, capital improvements down the road, like just the incentive to
I think
do
we have
anything to
enough.
keep it up.
I think we have enough items that potentially meet that this is just too much.
It would be difficult to get to do that. Okay, M, demonstrate creation of or participation in a community land trust program for moderate income housing. Creating a trust fund where people donate their land for the purpose of building moderate income housing on it. Thus eliminating cost of the land and making housing more affordable. Sure, we could try that if we have a willing donator. If somebody comes to the table and says, when I go, I want to donate my property to the city for this purpose, then I think you jump all over that. If you don't have a willing donator, I mean, there's no way to do this.
Sure.
N is implement a mortgage assistance program for employees of the municipality, an employee that provides contracted services for the municipality or any other public employer that operates within the municipality. Again, it's another subsidy program. You see this in resort towns where they can't get people to come in and clean hotels and work in restaurants and things because they can't afford Park City rent. So I've also seen this. I've also seen incentives for like firefighters, police officers, school teachers, those kinds of things, where you give them some kind of subsidy if they're a public employee in one of those service areas. Again, if the city wants to go down that road, we certainly can put something together to help out with that. Just remember that, again, that the gap that you're trying to help people out, it's a huge gap.
Right.
Strategy O, apply for and partner with an entity that applies for state or federal funds or tax incentives to promote the construction of moderate income housing. An entity that applies for programs offered by the Utah Housing Corporation within the Utah Housing Corporation's funding capacity. An entity that applies for affordable housing programs administered by the Department of Workforce Services. An entity that applies for affordable housing programs administered by the Association of Governments established by the under an interlocal agreement. This is an interesting one that Eileen Moss talked to me about, that could we as a city give money to another surrounding city that's already doing something and help them do that there, thus not doing it here.
So the equivalent of a carbon offset?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting.
So could we partner with Farmington City, with Kaysville City, with Layton City, and say, we're gonna give you X number of dollars a year that you're going to directly put into programs that you're already running that further affordable housing things, and that may have some real possibilities. I don't know to the extent that the city can afford to do it, and how much they're willing to do, and what constitutes making a difference.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what is it, $50,000?
If we send them $50,000 a year, does that do something?
Yeah.
You would need to look at that, you would need to talk to some other cities and say, is this something you guys would consider doing? I mean, how much money do you need to make a difference? That it would make that we can show that we made a difference by donating. I think it's worth the conversation. It just, the parameters are a little bit unclear. But I think that's one that's worth taking a look at and just seeing what may or may not be available. I mean, if you looked at just going in and saying, well, we're gonna partner with Farmington City to build some moderate income housing, and you did that from scratch, it's millions of dollars. Not tens of thousands of dollars. It'd cost millions of dollars to do that. So I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that looks like on the ground.
But I'm assuming the state is looking at this on scale. If you have a dozen Fruit Heights that are stuck in the situation we're at, each contributing some smaller amount, it kind of starts to add up. It's interesting. I never realized that there was some sort of offset opportunity. Where would those funds come from?
I don't know. It'd have to come out of the city budget somewhere.
Sure.
You could also look at a version of this and say, could we go in and subsidize something that we've already got in our city? Would subsidizing the trailer park rents qualify for something like this?
It'd probably be less expensive too than just
Yeah.
the gift to another city, I would think. I mean, like, for example, I'm thinking of some of the older, like, facilities that are more moderate income housing. A lot of them run into these big capital improvement type issues. If the city were to help with that somehow, is that something that we can say, hey, we helped the trailer park, or we helped
Or
Somerset?
Could you tie it to ADUs even?
Sure.
Yeah. That's one that's worth probably having some conversation, at least have some conversation about that. And how much is the city willing to contribute? P is demonstrate utilization of moderate income housing set aside from a community reinvestment agency, a CRA, or an RDA. There are no RDA, CRAs set up in the city now. If you want to go down that road, we can talk to the people that do this, but these are usually related to commercial investments, not housing. These are usually, those kinds of things are usually some kind of industrial or commercial investment. That's a road that the city has not gone very far down in the past. But if you wanted to, that's definitely one of the strategies that could be looked at.
Jeff, aren't those most likely? I think Syracuse did something with this, around the Costco that they.
They did.
had Come in. So they gave Costco a bunch of credits, to put in some more retail around there, and I think some housing, and it's just a really cheap loan for the developer. And then those individuals that buy the homes or buy that pay back.
Well, it's not a
that
cheap
developer.
loan for a developer. What it is that you,
It's money that they don't have
You're-
to come up
you're-
with now.
what it is, it's you're foregoing taxes. So you build an industrial building and you don't pay, and the county and the city and the school district don't charge you property taxes for X number of years, and you're creating additional value to the community that somewhere down the road, after the CRA is matured, you've increased the value of the whole area.
Yeah, but
And
I also.
that,
think
that's
it's
how
a-
they
it-
work.
But as residents buy those homes or whatever, it's attached to their property tax to help pay back those development costs.
And Darren, and exactly what you're talking about, that, they've done that at Black Desert down in Ivins, Utah. And they do. There's some kind of a bond created that the city helped finance some of the infrastructure, and the developer was supposedly lowering the price on his units, selling them at some later date to attach to the tax bill. The property owners would be stuck with that bill. Has not come across with flying colors to anybody buying down there. In fact, there was a big expose on that strategy down there with people buying, and, you know, these are $1 million units down there. Yeah, I don't know how much incentive people that can afford $1 million little condo down there need. But to me, anything that we're gonna surprise people with down the road is a delayed tax.
Kaysville City's doing one right now to rehabilitate Main Street and redo some of the old buildings and some of the street treatments and things like that. There's probably about 25 CRAs countywide now.
And is this different from like a qualified opportunity zone?
I don't know what that is.
I just know that there can be these tax incentivized structures where essentially the tax is kind of similar to what you're saying. The tax is deferred, but I think usually the QOZBs are dealing with more of, like you said, a commercial type situation. But this is different. This would be more residentially focused.
Yeah, and this wasn't a tax, it was a delayed payment for infrastructure. put
All the
into
infrastructure and
rate.
stuff.
Oh, got it.
So it
So it's-
wasn't,
it's
it
part of
wasn't
like
a
a
tax, but
CRD.
it was attached to the tax bill that it was due at a certain time.
Got it. So just a balloon payment down the road.
That's what it was.
Got it.
Well, that's interesting. The ones that I'm familiar with in this county have all been related to some kind of commercial or industrial project,
Yeah, this was on the residential development.
okay? Well, if that's something that we want to look into, we can look into it. They are fairly complicated and take a long time to put into motion.
I don't think that one makes sense for.
I agree, it doesn't.
Nope.
Strategy Q, eliminate impact fees for any accessory dwelling unit that is not an internal accessory dwelling unit is defined in 1021-101. Again, this is, you know, the external ADUs. We're gonna be delving into that right now. Is the city willing to, give some kind of incentive to do these things? I don't know.
It could even be like a temporary thing saying, hey, if you do this within the first 2 years of the statute, it's waived. After that, we'll charge our normal fee.
I mean, that's one of the ideas.
Because we're not getting any fees for external ADUs right now,
No,
because it doesn't exist.
no, you're not.
Is there any is there any benefit to the city, though, if somebody builds an external ADU and they don't rent it out, if it just sits vacant, or if they have family move in?
One of the biggest challenges to external ADUs is that the state and the governor realized that building a bunch of apartments along the Wasatch Front didn't help anybody. Home ownership is the key. Home ownership is the key to helping young families have a place that they can own and that they can build equity. External ADUs don't help that one out. It's just another rental unit.
Well, I see it
So
more
do you incentivize
of
people
aging
to
parents.
rent more, to build more rental units?
Because the times I've seen a lot of people doing the external ADUs, it's their aging parents. So it, in a way, I mean, it's shifting housing supply, right? You have someone who can no longer take care of a home. They shift into one of these external ADUs. That opens up property. Again, is that affordable
Yes.
to that young family? It depends on the size of the home. Some of these homes are smaller and more affordable. But no, I get what you're saying. That there all these apartments that went up, you just have investors who buy them up and rent them out.
There is no free incentive, none whatsoever. An incentive is coming out of someone's pocket, and it's the taxpayer.
Sure.
So anything that we talk about, any kind of incentive, is coming out of the taxpayer's pocket. And you have to ask, do you want to do that?
Sure.
Is there any more? Is that, go to the next page.
12 more.
Boy, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
They added.
We're halfway through.
Strategy R, create a program to transfer development rights for moderate income housing. This means allowing a developer who owns land in two places in the city, one that is zoned for density and one that is not, to transfer the zoning designation from one to the other, or potentially from one developer to another. I don't know, that sounds pretty dicey.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be a nightmare to manage, especially when we're so built out at this point.
Yeah, I think that would be very difficult to try and manage that. Strategy S is ratify a joint acquisition agreement with another local political subdivision for the purpose of combining resources to acquire property for moderate income housing. That's a version of that other thing we talked about. You want to partner with another city and go build a project. I think the first question you have to ask yourself, do we want to be in the development business as a city? As a municipality, do we want to be a developer?
No.
Well, in essence, you're helping that other city. All you're doing is meeting a requirement to be doing something. So we're not helping Fruit Heights City by doing that.
Right.
Yeah. This is buying compliance.
It's our carbon credit.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Strategy T, develop a moderate income housing project for residents who are disabled or 55 years or older. So, this would be, maybe doing that senior living type project. I don't know, again, I mean, Fruit Heights City's not a developer. And so I don't think the city's interested in doing that kind of a project. And the other side of it is, how far do you want to go to incentivize somebody else to do it? I think that one, again, is going to be difficult, given the limited amount of land we have. Strategy U, develop and adopt a station area plan in accordance with 1021-203. We don't have a transit station, so that's really not a road we can go down. we're never gonna have a transit station.
Yep.
Keep scrolling down. V, create or allow for and reduce regulations related to multifamily residential dwellings compatible in scale and form with detached single-family residential dwellings and located in walkable communities within residential or mixed-use zones. This strategy is similar to A in our plan using the R3 zone. This is a description of missing middle housing, multi-unit buildings that are not high rises but sized similar to single-family homes. Multifamily means anything with shared walls, apartments, condos, townhomes, duplexes, triplexes, and so on. It's really a version of A, which we've already talked about. Again, if we could have a project or two in this city that is of a higher density nature, I think that goes a long way to meeting that.
The way I read that is it says create or allow for. We do allow for with the R3 zone. I guess my hangup is and reduce regulations related to. What does that, I mean?
Well, that means either some kind of subsidy or some kind of deregulation.
Yeah.
Probably in terms of impact fees.
These are also similar.
Yeah.
There's a lot of duplication.
Yeah.
X is create a housing and transit reinvestment zone in accordance with Title 63N. We don't have any transit zones, so that is probably just not feasible, again. Strategy W, demonstrate implementation of any other program or strategy to address the housing needs of residents of the municipality who earn less than 80% of the area median income, including the dedication of local funding source to moderate income housing, or the adoption of a land use ordinance that requires 10% or more of new residential development in a residential zone to be dedicated to moderate income housing. This is something that a number of communities have tried, saying that certain amount of your units need to meet the affordable definitions of affordable housing. Say you're building 10 units, one of them has to be permanently considered affordable housing. Usually a developer to do something like that is looking for some kind of incentive. Again, this idea, somebody's gonna pay for that. Somebody's paying to do that. The city's gotta be willing to step up and say, we're going to make this happen and we're gonna commit to it. So that commitment's gotta be there to do that kind of stuff. But it has merit. I don't know how successful it's been. 1 out of every 10 units is considered affordable. Again, if you're talking single-family homes, that's nearly impossible. Maybe through scale in density, you could make some of that happen. Okay, let's go on. Strategy Y, create a home ownership promotion zone in accordance with Part 5 home ownership promotion zone for municipalities. Requires 10 contiguous acres or less, zone for fewer than 6 housing units per acre before the HOPZ is created. The HOPZ must then zone for 6 or more per acre, and the units must be purchased, not rented. And the city must provide that 60% of the units must qualify as affordable housing. This is a new law that was passed maybe 2 years ago. I know there were some larger cities talking about this. I'm not aware where this has been put in place anywhere yet. I'm sure there's an example or two of it. But I'm just not aware of any that have been done in this county so far. Again, it's another tool. It's gonna be pretty hard, again, to, get a developer to say, I'm going to reduce all of my prices to make this work for somebody without him getting something in return. So that's the thing to think about. Any comments on that one?
Y and Z look very similar as far as, I mean, some of it's just like, how do you police that? How do you police that 50% of them are gonna be occupied by the owner for 25 years?
If that was something that we should look into.
Oh, no, Y and Z are like,
We
Hard
should
pass.
try and find some examples of who's done it, and whether or not it's been successful. It sounds pretty complicated.
yeah,
I talked with Layton City about that very thing one time, and it's a fairly complicated procedure.
sure.
Strategy Z, create first home investment zone in accordance with Title 63 and First Home Investment Zone Act. Requires a minimum of 10 acres of developable land, 51% developable area must have 30 dwelling units per acre.
That doesn't fit.
Um,
Rights.
I just don't see us ever doing anything that dense.
No.
I just don't see us ever doing anything that dense. Now we're into the double numbers, AA, so these are all new. Approve a project that receives funding from or qualifies to receive funding from the Utah Home Investment Program created in Title 51. This applies to cities of the first or second class. Fruit Heights is a city of the fifth class, so that one's not one that we need to worry about. BB is adopt or approve a qualifying affordable homeownership density bonus for single family residential units. So you have to meet the affordability requirements. That's going to be difficult. I think the rental piece of it, renting something under $2,100 a month, is much more attainable for the city. Again,
I think managing something like this would be an administrative nightmare.
yeah. The code specifies that the zoning must be at least 6 units per acre. Again, getting something between $300,000 and $400,000 is gonna be a pretty hefty lift in this city. And by the way, that's a pretty hefty thing anywhere in this county. Anywhere in this county. Strategy CC, adopt or approve a qualifying affordable home ownership density bonus for multifamily residential units. So this one's, again, it's similar, it's 20 residential units per acre, which we could do. 60% of the units are deed restricted to the owner occupancy for 5 years. 25% must qualify as affordable. 25% of the units must be no larger than 1,600 square feet. The builder creates preferential buyer program. The biggest thing with all of these programs like this, who's gonna manage them?
Right.
The city manager that's already got 10,000 things to worry about. This has all got to be, these are all things that big cities get involved in. Is Fruit Heights City gonna get involved in that, managing that stuff? I don't know. I don't know.
Wow, that was a marathon.
Yeah.
Good job. You've just been standing that whole time, delivering.
I think a lot of those things are just not realistic. For a
Most
city-
of them aren't, but I think there's a handful of things that we can put on there that we're already kind of doing that I think shows good faith. But you're right, most of that is just doesn't make any sense.
What do you want to do now? What direction do you want to take this now?
What is the ask?
So the ask from the city council is that the planning commission come up with 6 to 10 strategies to recommend to the city council that would possibly work, and the reasoning why the planning commission thinks that they could work, and how we'd be able to move forward with those plans. After that is presented to the city council wants to go through those same ones. They also are been tasked to go through it and see if they have other ones that they think that the city could possibly add to it or go. And then once they come up with a recommendation from the planning commission, and we come up with around 6 to 7 strategies, then the planning commission would be at that time tasked to implement or put a plan together how each year we're reporting on these, and seeing probably quarterly where we meet what the strategies we came up with. The city council did ask that the planning commission try to have something to them. They said August 1st, the very first time. We kind of pushed that back a little bit. So they're meeting in September. So that would give us one more meeting to go over some of these and have a good idea of which ones the planning commission would be wanting to send forward to the city council.
So I think we noted, did we, no, I didn't write them all down.
I took.
I know you took.
I mean, then we talked AEF, obviously. B was the one that we kind of had a unique approach that we thought might work. We talked a little bit about I, just from the standpoint of if we create some sort of clarification that if we're talking senior living or assisted living, that would definitely be something with the single room occupancy developments. I think the rest of them, that's where it just started getting crazier and crazier.
There's the O, the one that we partner with another city to
Sure. We talked.
give them some money to further some of their own efforts.
We talked about Q in terms of like a very limited time, saying, hey, we've just passed this required external ADU. We've never taken fees before because it didn't exist. So for the next year, 2 years, I mean, it's a short-term report to the city, but we waived those fees, and then we started getting more people reporting too. So that's, I mean, we're up to 5, 6-ish there. I think, yeah, and then it just started getting real unique.
So is it just come up with a list along with some dialogue,
Some narrative.
some narrative to submit? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think honestly at this point, once you put together our minutes, I think you'll have,
Yeah, that's what I was just.
so I think we just submit, we're beating August 1. You're welcome, city council. We're gonna have it to you by, July. Because I think we had a good discussion here, and I think we probably had at least 6.
So is that your recommendation? We'll just go through those ones. We'll send them out to the planning commission with your notes. And if there's something that you say, yeah, maybe not this one,
Sure.
but we'll prepare that to go to the city council then.
So let us take those 5 to 7 things and maybe flesh them out a little bit more, and maybe we could see if there's some other municipal examples of how those things may or may not be. The vast majority of this stuff on this list requires some kind of subsidy.
Yeah, and I don't think we're in a position to give up too many dollars. But the couple of things we did talk about, I think the only one that we have on our list that is kind of a subsidy is waiving those fees for the externals. But it's not money we've seen before. So
Right.
I think at least for the time
It's
being.
not money you're counting on.
Sure. It's not something our budget has ever touched, right? So I feel like that makes it a little more palatable, even though it is taking, city time and attention to deal with it.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Mark, do you feel like we've portrayed what the council asked? Is there any other details we need to talk about?
No.
Okay. At our next meeting, let's talk about those, kind of the ones that we identified in a little more detail. See if we can formulate a recommendation.
And maybe even, Haley, if it's not too much of an ask, maybe if we could get the minutes, maybe a week or two earlier, and then we can just start bouncing around. Because since Heidi and Shelley weren't here, I'm sure they're both going to have some good input too. They, given their professional experience and exposures that maybe we just didn't have the eyes to see. So maybe we could start the conversation by email, the 2 or so weeks leading up to our meeting, and then just jump right in.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
I do need a recommendation from the planning commission for that lot split, if they recommend that the staff move forward with the process. So if I could get a recommendation for that.
Right. Yeah, I didn't, I thought it seemed pretty straightforward. The square footage, I guess, the acreage there is sufficient that it makes sense.
Scott, you want to make that? You want me to make it? You want a second? Or you want to make the recommendation?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'll make a recommendation to approve the preliminary, to suggest approving the preliminary plat approval for East Oaks subdivision, First Amendment, 1649 East Oaks.
I think I got a second.
I will second that.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, I think that was everybody. It looks like we had one other note about the general plan. Was that, I felt like we did kind of talk about that with the MIH, but any other additional notes that you want to discuss tonight?
So the planning commission knows that the city council approved to redo the general plan. We've put a RFP together. I'm hoping that I have that completed by the end of this week. It's just being all reviewed right now. So if I have it finished at the end of this week, I'll be sending it out and start that process of soliciting bids for redoing the general plan. So that'll be a big project that will once again be coming to the planning commission. The second part to that is that the city council asked me to come back to the planning commission to review a portion of our current general plan about the trails. And if they go across any private property, that in order to provide an easement or something like that, it needed to be a minimum of 5 lots at that time. But that, once again, that's just some direction from the council. But we are going out to bid to redo our general plan, so.
Right, so just to clarify though, we're redoing the general plan, but they want to redo a part of it before we redo it?
Yes.
That seems Interesting. What is the cost of redoing the general plan at this point? Like, what was our scheduled time to redo the general plan?
You can amend portions of the general plan anytime. You just go through the process with the planning commission. But anywhere from 5 to 10 years, maybe a little bit longer, just depending on how your plan's set up.
Got it.
So, but the cost of the last one was just around $80,000. And then the modern income housing was a different part of that.
Sure.
This one will include a lot more city involvement as far as residents. And just from the pre-budget, I talked to a couple different companies that do it, that do general plans. It's close to about the 80,000 mark. Hopefully it'll be a little bit less. Depends how much they can review our current one. If there's items that they don't have to go back and research. A big portion of it will be community involvement. And both of them said that would be a bigger portion of it going through at this time, so.
Is it possible, so with the two requests, can we just fold them into one? If we're just redoing it, why don't we just redo the trails at that time?
That's just a recommendation that would be coming from the planning commission. If that's your recommendation, I'll take that back, that the planning commission recommends we just go through the process and get all the information and move forward with one. But that's a recommendation from you guys.
Sure.
That's not.
That'd be
mine.
my thought. I mean, unless there's a particularly more expedited need for that, I don't know that, I don't foresee the expedited need to process that sooner than if we're already incurring the cost to do the plan again, might as well just lump it all together. That's my personal thought.
Yeah, I'm having trouble seeing what the goal is here to try to approve something that we're going to reapprove in a new plan.
Yeah.
It was just a recommendation from the council, so I just bring it to the planning commission, so.
So on that, is that something we need to give a proposal to them from tonight, or is that something next meeting that we want to formalize some sort of recommendation, I guess?
I can move forward any way
Sure.
that you would like on that, with your recommendation that however you want to word it, or if we want to wait and you can think more about it over the next 3 weeks and then do some in that time when we do the strategies back to the city council. That's up to you
Yeah, either
guys.
way, I'd entertain a motion if anyone has it, or we can table it until next time to discuss, but that's kind of where I'm thinking.
So what is the ask again specifically from the city council?
To just amend the portion of the trails, if it goes across private property, to be a minimum of 5 lots.
And do we know what the discussion was to suggest the 5-lot criteria?
I honestly, I don't know how the 5-lot portion, that was just in the motion. It's been one of the concerns about the current general plan from residents who have a trail going through their property. And so that's a portion of that.
Has the city been approaching the people to try to negotiate an easement? Is that the concern that's arisen, or is it just the fact that it is on the plan?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think there are individuals that want to split their lot, and that's on there. And if that is on there,
Got it.
the city staff needs to follow the ordinance and follow it and go through that process of trying
Got
to
it.
get that easement.
Got it.
But I don't know if it's happening right now.
No, it isn't. I mean, this is specifically
I'm looking
related
at-
to.
I'm looking at you on this one, Tara, or if it's something that's just in the next year or two.
We've been waiting for 5 years, so.
So,
This is specifically related to the trail plan on Bear Creek between Highway 89 and Mountain Road. This is specifically related to that
Like the coming, like connecting Gailey up towards Bear Creek or something, is that?
Yes,
Going up through the,
Got
standalone
it.
creek
Yes.
through there.
And, sorry, and I know we're not doing the public, but you said 5 years, sorry, you're waiting for a split? No, sorry, I was just making sure I understood the context.
So we own property on Green Road.
Okay,
We tried to subdivide back in 2021, I think it was, and we were told we couldn't do it unless we put a trail through the middle of our property. Jill Ashby was also required to do the same, and so people were wanting to subdivide and were being forced to put a trail.
Got it.
So that, I think, is why the council is pushing this, because of the timing of the general plan rewrite. There's no clear end in sight.
got it, okay, no, I appreciate that, thanks for the context.
So in the RFP, we tried to put a,
Expedited
yeah,
request,
a little
got
bit
it.
twister on.
What, can I just ask,
solving-
what requires the city to require that?
What's that? So if there's a trail on a general plan, the city cannot just go in and take the property.
Yeah.
They have to purchase it, pretty much. If it's on, especially on something like that. Like the Rock Loft or a big subdivision up there, that was part of their subdivision. They had to put a trail in, it was
right.
at their cost, all that kind of stuff. When you get to smaller lots, the impact needs to be paid for. And so the city needs to come to an agreement, have it appraised, go through the whole process
Sure.
to purchase that easement.
Got it.
Because it's on the general plan.
Darren, just to clarify too, I think what the council is proposing is that you would have to put 5 or more units in a subdivision in order to create that enforcement. This is just a 2-acre lot being split in half.
So it's more the size of,
It's the size of the need that would create the need for additional trail space.
got it. So do they have something drafted, like a proposal? Because that's what I didn't understand, is the 5.
Yeah.
No, that was just the recommendation.
Okay.
There's nothing, this is land use. This one comes back, by law to the planning commission to go through that process of going through and moving forward with this. So if that's something, then we go through, we look at that, we create an ordinance, we have public hearings.
Sure.
And we go through and we change the process.
So maybe Mark, if you could meet up with the city council and when we come together next time and kind of walk us through the thought process, just so that we understand it better, because I'm still trying to grasp the trail proposal. And I'm not asking for some like proposed language. I know that has to come from us, but just, it sounds like, I know I wasn't at the working meeting. I had a kids event, and so I wasn't able to hear some of the discussion there. So maybe if you want to come back to us with a little more input, that'd be helpful there.
Okay, so the next meeting, we'll have it on the agenda again?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. And everyone, thank you for this. We had a party today, 2 hours. Felt like 7 hours going through the MIH plan stuff. Very good. Thank you, and thank you for your input and helping guide us. It's always helpful to have some context and background. I don't think we have any tabled items, correct? So we'll move on. I don't think there's any sort of other reports, right? With that, the 28th, I am around.
28.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm around, assuming I'm around, if that makes sense to you guys. I know you guys are looking for my replacement, but I am here until you kick me out. So I'll go ahead and I will entertain a motion to close. Everyone's favorite motion of the day.
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
Second?
And I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated.